So today I want to share with you how to capture more business from expireds. Have you ever noticed how some realtors actually do an abundance of business through this source? Well, I'm going to share with you 7 very specific keys to the art, of course, of capturing more business from expireds.
Hi everyone, Robert Villanueva here. Over a buyer's market. You can tear it down. And of course, as always, I'll see you at the top.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump right in. Let's talk about the 7 keys to the art of capturing more business, specifically from expireds. Let's dive right in. Number 1, we're going to be talking about time. Now, as far as the time is concerned, this could be a very important part of you capturing more business. What do I mean by time? Well, let's talk about your competition. The competition between the hours of 7 a.m. and 8 a.m., your competition could be anywhere from 2 agents to as many as 5 agents. And again, of course, depending on the areas that you service, because the numbers that I just gave you, for example, in LA, South Florida, Manhattan, San Francisco, that can all be times 10. But let's just use this as an example. Now, between the hours of 8 a.m. and 9 a.m., those numbers now drastically go up as much as 25 to 50 realtors. And between the hours of 9 and 10, you're now looking at 40 to even as many as 75 realtors that you're competing with. Now, why is this an important point? Because some of you are actually strolling into the office at 7:30, 8, 8:30, jumping on the phone about 9, 9:30, and calling expireds. And this is a vital part, because when you get on the phones, and it's now, as an example, 9:15, you're getting a lot of resistance. And the resistance that you're getting at this point is you are the 30th person. You're the 40th agent that's called me. Can you guys just stop calling me? Take me off the list. Any of you experience this? I know I have. So this is an important part. Now, this, in some cases, can actually be as important, if not more important, than, your skills. And why am I saying that? Because sometimes people will set an appointment, maybe a second one, and maybe a third, and they just say, you know what, I'm done with these calls. And then they just go about their day, but they have 2 or 3 appointments that they're set. If you're one of the early ones, you might be one of those people. As the saying goes, of course, the early bird gets the worm. So if you're liking these videos, I'm going to ask of you, of course, to subscribe. So you can go ahead and hit that button now. You, of course, comment, positive or negative. I'll take critique as well. But most importantly, if you can actually share this video, as I'm trying to grow this audience. Now let's get to point number 2. On point number 2, let's talk a little bit about the frequency. What do I mean by the frequency? Well, how many times you're going to be calling the expireds for that day. Brand new expireds, you're going to call them 5 times. Let me explain. Now, as far as the 5 times are concerned, let's use an example that there are 5 expireds today. And each expired comes with 3 phone numbers. That's 15 available phone numbers. You're going to go through, and round number 1, you're going to call all 15 of those numbers. Well, you've exhausted the entire list. You've omitted, eliminated, scratched off, whatever it may be, the people that you've spoken with, the people that you set an appointment with, and of course, the numbers that are no longer in service. Excuse me, no longer in service. Well, as soon as you're done with that, you're going to go over to round number 2. And in round number 2, you're going to go through the exact same thing. Of course, this time you're not going to call the people that you've already spoken with, set an appointment, and or omitted. So in round number 2, you're now going to find yourself maybe 7, 8, 9 numbers of the original 15 that you're going to be dialing. Once you've exhausted that, you've now made another contact 2 or 3. You're going to go to round number 3, and you're going to do that right after each round. And in round number 3 of the 15 numbers, now maybe you have 5, 6, or 7 of the numbers remaining. And now in round number 3, you might make another contact or 2. Why is this important? Because some of you will try the one time, not get a hold of them, and then that's it, and you move on. Well, what do you think they're doing when they're not answering? In most cases, they're actually on the phone with another realtor like myself. So you want to try them multiple times. After the third time, you're going to move on to other sources. I don't care who you call. You can call some leads. You can call for sale by owners, for rent by owners, probates, just listed, just sold, your database, whoever it may be. Once you've exhausted all of your morning prospecting, you're now going to go to round number 4. What does that look like? So let's start from the top. 8 a.m., you get on the phones, round 1. Round 2. Round 3. Go to another source. Go to another source. Go to another source. Sprinkle in a couple of leads. Then you're saying to yourself, okay, I'm done with my morning prospecting routine. Nope, not yet. You're going to go to round number 4. And by the time you get to round number 4, you only have like 4 or 5 or 6 numbers, and that's probably going to take you about 10 minutes, unless, of course, you actually get a hold of somebody, and which is what you want. But in most cases, just that 4th round, it's going to be just simply, 5, maybe 10 minutes at the absolute most. Well, I did talk about 5. Okay. And when do you do the 5th round? Well, the 5th round, you ideally want to do that at or after 5 p.m. Why? Well, because there's a percentage of people that actually work in industries where they're not allowed to have their phones with them. They put them in their locker, they put them in their bag, they put them in a place where they unfortunately cannot have access to. Well, now it's about 5 o'clock. They go grab their phone and they go, oh my gosh, there's 172 missed messages. And guess who's calling at 5:01? I am. This guy's called me 3 times, 4 times already. Well, let me see what he wants. That's the reason I want you to call them 5 times. In that 5th round, I want you to call them after 5 o'clock. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about point number 3. And point number 3, we're going to be talking about creating a prioritization. What do I mean by that? In that, what I want you to do is I want you to create a focal point, and the focal point is going to be 2 focal points. Number 1 is going to be your top 3 zip codes. I'm going to explain in just a little bit. Number 2 is I want you to create your top 3 cities. Now, why do I want you to do this? The reason I want you to do this is because there are going to be some minimum standards. And the minimum standards is, let's use an example. You're prospecting in the morning, it's 8 o'clock, you're going through, you're dialing all of these numbers, and then you realize, ooh, there's one in my top 3 zip code. Let me print that. Ooh, there's one in my top 3 cities. Let me print that. So now you have some doors that you actually have prepared. Now, the reason I say doors is that I want you to go and knock on these doors. That's right. I want you to go knock on these doors. Well, you don't have to, but if this is something that you're wanting to really learn how to master, that's what some of the most successful agents do. Now, you're going to go and create, again, those 2 focal points. The reason I'm having you create these 2 focal points is because the moment that you get either in focal point A, or number 1, whatever you want to call it, and focal point number 2, which is of course the 3 cities, you're going to print them. Now, the reason I'm having you create 2 focal points is because the market fluctuates. Goes up, goes down. We have a lot of expireds, we have no expireds. When we have a lot of expireds, there are sometimes you will look just simply in the top 3 zip codes, and you're like, oh my gosh, there's like 5 of them. I don't want you to get overwhelmed. And then there's other times where the market is a little bit, a little bit stronger and there's not as many expireds. And at that point in time, there's maybe 1 or 2 in the top 3 cities. I'm just trying to create some version of prioritization for you. Now, my expectation is I want you to go and knock on 2 doors a day, every single day. Create that as a version of a minimum standard. Okay. I have a saying, knock on 2 doors a day will keep the creditors away. Now, I know it's a little bit of a silly saying, but seriously, think about that. You go and knock on 2 doors a day, 5 days a week, that's 10 doors a week. Over the course of a month, 4 weeks in a month, 4 times 10 is now 40 doors. You'll very likely have a 20 to 25% open ratio, meaning you go knock on 40 doors, you'll have a good 8, 10, or 12 of them that'll open. Let's use the example of 10 of them. Of the 10 that'll open, 3 of those 10 that'll open will relist almost immediately within the very first week. The next 3 of the 10 will very likely list in the next 30, 60, or 90 days. And then there's 4 more that'll remain. of the four, there's probably going to be one, two, or three of them that'll just never come back on the market. Or if they do, it'll be way down the road, 2, 3, 5 years from now. And then you'll have one or two of them that'll probably relist sometime next year or the year after. But at least you're giving yourself the opportunity. And the better skilled you are, the better the opportunities are going to come your way. I'm hoping you're liking this video. I know I've said it before, but I want you to subscribe. I want you to like. I want you to comment, good or bad. And I want you, of course, most importantly, is to share this if you're finding tremendous value in this. Now, let's move over to point number 4. Now, I talked about as far as door knocking is concerned. Ideally, I want you to go and door knock them as soon as you possibly can. Okay? Now, when you go and door knock, people ask me all the time, what do I take with me? What are the things that I should always take with me? Well, we're going to go over that in just a little bit. But what I want you to do is I want you to at least, when you go and door knock, is try to preferably 2 times. What does that look like? So for me, it was very common that I would have an appointment at 3, 4, or 5 o'clock in the evening or afternoon. So I would take my expireds. I'd go and knock on the 1, 2, 3, or 4 doors. I'd attend my appointment or two. Once my appointment was over, I'd go back and knock on the 1, 2, or 3 doors that did not answer. Now, why am I doing this? I'm giving myself multiple opportunities. In most cases, that would be the very last activity for the day before I called it a day. So I do want you to go and door knock these as quickly as you possibly can. Well, let's talk about the infamous, if you haven't heard of it yet, expire date. As far as expire date, that's the first of the month. And why is this expire date? Is because most contracts end up expiring at the end of the month. It's kind of common practice. Not everybody does it, but you'll notice the more you go into this particular source, you'll notice that, for example, they'll be on the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th. There'll be 5 expires, 7 expires, 6 expires, 8 expires. And then you get to the 1st, and all of a sudden there's 18, 20, 30, 50. There's a variation, but my point being is that on the 1st, there's almost always double, triple, and even as many as 4 times more than, the other days. So you really want to pay attention to this. On that day, it needs to really be a focused day on expireds. And when it's on expire day, I want you to go and knock on the doors first thing. Don't wait until the afternoon. I want you to go through, call, as I talked about, round 1, round 2, round 3, get your butt in the car and go and knock on those doors. Okay, go beat everybody else to it. The people that actually are the aggressive ones are the ones that are going to, of course, get the results. Let's talk about point number 5. Okay, because there are going to be some times where you go and knock on a door, there isn't really too many expires, and you drive, let's say 20, 25 minutes to that expired, and nobody answers. Well, in that case, I want you to, again, this is not expired day. I'm just talking about just a general day. You don't have an appointment. I want you to take advantage of that. And what I want you to do is on point number 5 is I want you to knock on the neighbor's doors. You're going to use the 225 or the 5510 method. What's the 225? Well, when you go and knock on that expired door, whether they answer or not answer, go to the 2 doors to the right, the 2 doors to the left, and the 5 across the street. Or the 5 to the right, 5 to the left, and then the 10 across the street. This gives you the opportunity to, of course, speak to the neighbors. Well, what are you going to tell them? What you're going to tell them ideally is you're going to knock on the door. Hi, my name is Robert. I'm a local realtor. And the reason I'm stopping by is your neighbor Bob was trying to get his property sold. We may have a potential buyer for Bob. And I was curious, how do I get a hold of Bob? Now, why am I saying this? Okay, because if the price is right, you should have a handful of investors. We're not lying to them. And those investors, if it's priced well, absolutely, all day, every day. And ideally, you should have an inventory of buyers that you're also working with. Okay, so you're not really, in a sense, lying. You just have to make sure that you have that to back it up. Now, as far as that is concerned, you go through, and of course, the neighbor, if they're good friends, they might think that they're doing a good deed, and they go, yeah, absolutely, of course. Let me give you Bob's number. And now I get the phone number. Now, this is important. Why is this important? Well, did I try Bob earlier? Sure, I did. But I didn't have Bob's number. Why did I not have Bob's number? Well, I tried the wife, I tried the sons, I tried the daughter, I tried all of these numbers that came up on the list, but Bob's number wasn't on there. Why? Because Bob has a number that isn't registered. It's actually not even, it's not even in his name. Bob uses a company phone. So That's just not a number that's associated with that property. That doesn't always happen. Okay. But there are opportunities where that ends up happening. Now I have what I call is the golden ticket. What do I mean by the golden ticket? Well, think about it. Everybody else was calling on 123 Main Street off of the numbers that were provided, and they spoke to everybody but the owner. In this case, I go and knock on the neighbor's door and he thinks he's doing a good deed. He or she is doing a good deed. And then they give me the number to Bob, and this is Bob's company number. Maybe there's one, two, or three other agents that have this, but now it's not the same as to with what I was sharing with you before, the 40, 75 realtors that I was competing with. So now I have the opportunity to, of course, be able to build that potential appointment with Bob. And just imagine you get 2, 3, or 5 calls versus getting 40, 50, or 75 calls. The resistance in some cases actually being less. Sometimes it's a little bit of annoyance. How in the world did you get this phone number? Who do you think you are? But either way, we know the arena, right? Okay, so that's something that's really important. Now let's continue on the script when we're talking to the neighbor, because I go and knock on the door, hi, blah, 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 blah. And the person goes, I don't know. I don't even really talk to them. I have no relationship with them. I don't have their phone number, so on and so forth. Well, now you spin it over, you use the just listed or the just sold script, and you just use the body of it. And what do I mean by that? What does that look like? I'm going to give you the abbreviated version for the sake, of course, of being efficient with our time. Knock on the door. Hi, my name is Robert. I'm a local realtor. The reason I'm stopping by is because we may have a potential buyer for your neighbor Bob's home. Trying to get a hold of Bob. What's the best number for me to reach him? The response is, I don't even know who that is. I have no clue, blah, 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 blah. Now I go, well, I appreciate the opportunity. Now that I'm here, I am, of course, a local realtor. How about yourself? When are you planning on moving? How long have you lived at this address? Where'd you move from? How'd you happen to pick this area? If you were to make a move, where would you go to next? Sometimes the actual appointment comes from the not expired home, but because of the efforts that you put into the neighbor's properties. So I want you to make sure that you are taking advantage when you're going out and knocking on doors, is knock on the neighbor's doors. Now let's talk about point number 6. Now, point number 6, let's talk a little bit about quantity. Quantity, with what I mean by that is how many should I be calling daily? Now, there's a variation to this. Again, I talked about that the market goes up, goes down. There's all kinds of variations. It's a strong market. It's a weak market. There's a lot of expireds. There's no expireds. Well, ideally, with what I want you to do is I want you to be in a position where you could take advantage of this. Okay. And what I mean by that is that when the market is really slow, there's a lot of expireds. You can be overwhelmed. And the way that you get away from being overwhelmed is you start to narrow and limit your search. Maybe you do it by price point, maybe you do it by distance, so on and so forth. Or the opposite, you're just not getting enough. The ideal number is to be a couple of factors. Number one, your search should be about 30-minute radius from where you actually work out of. Number two, your search should be about 10, maybe 20 expireds a day. That's the ideal thing. The next thing is, point number 3 is adjust your search if you're getting too many or you're not getting enough. Make those adjustments. That's what I mean by that. And then the other thing is, like I mentioned, keep in mind as far as price point. Sometimes, for example, with where I'm at, if I go 20 minutes west, I'm now in about a $1.5, $2 million average price point. If I go 20 minutes east, I'm now probably a little bit closer to like maybe $500,000 or $600,000 price point. So I might actually give myself a little forgiveness depending on the areas that you work. So I want you to take that into consideration as well. Again, I want you to subscribe, hit that button. I want you to like, I want you to comment, good or bad. And of course, I do want you to share this video. Let's go over the last point so we can go ahead and be efficient with this. Now, I talked a little bit earlier about what you take. What is it that you take with you? Okay. Now, what I don't want you to do is I don't want you doing what a lot of agents end up doing is they go through, they prepare all these beautiful, elaborate CMA packets, and they go and take them to these people. Well, the problem with that, and my challenge with that, is that you are basically giving them all of the information. You're not presenting it. And what do you think they're doing? They're dissecting it. This person's going to charge me this. They think they can sell my house for that. No way. So if you actually want to find a way of not doing business, that's the tactic I would encourage you to do. But that's not what I'm asking of you. What I want you to do is I always want you, of course, to be prepared and take a listing contract with you. You never know. You knock on that door and a person says, well, sure, come on in. Well, I just told you not to prepare a listing packet, okay? And the reason I don't want you to do that is because most of you are going to take 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes times 2 or 3. You're now investing an hour. You go and knock on these doors and nobody opens. But I do want you to be prepared. And what I want you to do to be prepared is you actually should take a tablet or a computer with you because you can do everything right then and there on the spot. Okay. Now, again, think about it. You go and knock on 40 doors, only 10 of them open. Maybe you're lucky if you get one of them that'll say, sure, come on in. So I don't want you investing all of this time and energy on it, but I do want you to be prepared. Now, what I do want you to take besides your computer is I want you to take what is called a plan of action. What's a plan of action? The plan of action is nothing more than basically with what you're going to do to sell your home. There's two sides to a sheet. The opposite side of that, just a little informal letter. Dear Mr. Homeowner, unfortunately, your property didn't sell. If you're still looking or thinking about selling, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. So that puts you now in a position where you at least have a flyer that you can leave behind. You should take a clipboard. That way, of course, you have something to write on. And as I mentioned, I want you to take a computer. I want you to take a tablet because I do want you to be prepared. I just don't want you to go through and, of course, prepare this elaborate, listing packet when you don't even know if they're going to end up opening the door. That's a lot of energy. It's a lot of time wasted. And for that matter, it could be pretty expensive if you continue to just go that route. Okay. It's something that I would encourage you, again, not to do, but it's up to you. Well, we just talked about, of course, the 7 keys to the art of capturing more expireds. I'm hoping that this video was helpful for you. And as always, I'm going to ask of you to subscribe. I'm going to ask of you to like. I'm going to ask of you, of course, to comment. And most importantly, I want you to share. Last but not least, don't hesitate to actually go to my other platforms. If you're looking at getting a little bit better skilled up, I'm going to encourage you. I'm going to actually be putting in the comments or in the notes section about a group that I do on Facebook. It's called Top Realtor Training. The link is actually down below. If you want more information in regards to that, it's absolutely free. You can come join us. Just click on the link, request to actually be a part of the group. And every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 7:30 a.m. to 8 a.m. Pacific Standard, we go over scripts and skills and I help you break them down. And of course, that is all free. So go to my Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and of course, as I mentioned, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hopefully this was helpful. Of course, your favorite coach here, Robert Villanueva. I'll see you at the top.
Hi everyone, Robert Villanueva here.